Okay. All right, so we had left off yesterday with two questions. Question number one was, we're on page 226. And Pasuk Lamed Gimel V'ata Yere Paro Ish Navon V'chacham. 8 lines from the bottom. And now Paro should put out a Navon V'chacham V'shisei Eretz Mitzrayim. So the Ramban says over here, clearly Yosef was alluding to himself. Clearly Yosef is alluding to himself that Paro should appoint him as the guy. So we had asked two questions yesterday. We asked, number one, why is Yosef making hishtadlus? Number one. And number two, who asked him to become an advisor? Okay, so one of the answers here is because what was the first thing Yosef said when he came out of prison? When Paro said, I hear you, what we mentioned yesterday, Paro said, I hear you interpret dreams. So what did Yosef say? It's not me, it's Hashem. Oh. At that point, that you're acknowledging everything is from Hashem, now you can make hishtadlus. Now you can make hishtadlus. When he left the prison, he just said, hey, do me a favor, remember me. Where was Hashem over here? He should have said, listen, I could get out if Hashem wants me to get out. And I'm asking you a favor to remember me. That would have been okay. But in prison, he was totally relying on this guy. Yosef, you 2 more years in prison. Here, Yosef is saying, Yosef has already said to Paro, it's not me, it's all the Ribono Shalom. Oh, it's all the Ribono Shalom? Okay, now you can make hishtadlus. That's one of the, okay. Now, I had a different approach here, which I'm only suggesting, but I think it might be accurate. You know, it says by Esther invited Haman. And by the way, the parallels between Yosef and Mordechai and Esther are very, very similar. Here's the Jew who's the second in command of the king. Mordechai was the Jew who's second in command to the king after Haman is deposed. And here's Esther, who's certainly the Jew who's second in command to the king. Right? What's his name? Lahavdil, Jimmy Carter. His wife Rosalind just died. And they said that she was running the country. She was a much better politician than he was. She made the main suggestions, right? And if she isn't running the country, she certainly has a hand in it. When Franklin Roosevelt was the president, Franklin Roosevelt had what do you call it? His wife was running the country. That they know for sure. The women, they're involved. There's no question they're involved. You know, it's not like the president. You know, he's also got to deal with his wife. So the truth is, when Nixon was the president, then what's his name was running the country. Kissinger was running the country. That's the truth. Nixon was completely out of it, but Kissinger was still running the country. He just died at 100. Henry Kissinger just died. He was 100 years old. So so the parallel by Esther, if you remember, she invites Haman to a party, right? He has the first banquet with the king and Haman. Then, at the first banquet, she says, come back for a second banquet. And at the second banquet, she says, this is the guy who's hassling us. So the question is, why does she need 2 banquets? Why didn't she just say it at the first banquet? Why did Esther wait for a second banquet? Do you remember, what did we say?
I remember it's because she's making Achashverosh
to get him all agitated.
Yes, I did.
They get him, and in Yiddish they say to retzaman. Right? They get him all pumped up. Right? There is an approach like that. Let's get a second one. Once this is happening again and again, now he's really going to be irritated. There is such an approach. So one of the Mefarshim, the classical Mefarshim, they say that when she first invited him, she didn't know why she was inviting him. She knew she was inviting him. She didn't know what she had planned. She was just over. The Gemara says she had 10 different things in mind, and she just wants to keep him near. So in something she gets an idea, she'll come up with an idea. Between the first banquet and the second banquet, something very significant happened. That's when Haman gives Mordechai the ride on the horse between the first and second banquet. Esther sees that as a sign min hashamayim. Haman was up, and now he's down and Mordechai goes up. At that point, she sees things. Now there's a sign from Shemayim. We're on the way up. Now the time is better Now's the time that I could take him down. Yosef, the first time he went down into a pit. Here he came up out of the pit. You come up out of the pit. In other words, when he made the ishtadlus with the first time, when he asked the guy to remember him, this is after he's been put down in the pit. There was nothing, what do you call it? There was no sign that he's on the way up. Now he's coming up out of the pit. Oh, you're coming up out of the pit. That's a sign min hashamayim. Now's the time you can make ishtadlus. So that could also be an answer. Okay, that's question number one. That takes care of question number one. The answer the Mefarshim give is that he already showed his faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When he said Biladai, he shows that Hashem's running the show. If Hashem is running the show, that's something else. Then the question is who asked you to give your advice? Who asked you for advice? So if you look at the pasuk carefully, look at the word ve'ata. Ve'ata. Where is the pasuk Lama Gimel? Where is it? Ve'ata. And now, the fact that you had the dream now, that's also part of the interpretation. He's not giving advice. It's part of the interpretation. Because and remember I told you about when you read handwriting. I had lessons in how to read handwriting, right? So when you read handwriting, what's the first thing you do? If you know nothing about the subject, you take a look at the handwriting, see what kind of handwriting it is. That's only part of reading a person's handwriting. Part of reading a person's handwriting is where on the page does he write it? How much margin do you leave? Where did you write it from the top of the page down? Did you write it? Did you go off the edge of the paper? That's all part of reading. It's not just looking at the writing. So dreaming a dream interpretation is not only what the content of the dream is. It's when did you have the dream? When did you have a dream? Not only that, the Gemara says Yosef came out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. That means Paro had the dream on Rosh Hashanah. Ve'ata, now that you had a dream on Rosh Hashanah is always a projection of what's going to be in the future. So the timing of the dream is part of, I'm giving you an interpretation. The timing of you had the dream, so I'm giving you an interpretation. I'm not making a suggestion, even though I'm making a suggestion. Because the Ramban says clearly he was the wink from yesterday, Ish Novon v'chocham. Okay. So then the Mefarshim ask, why Paro has the dreams of the cows first, right? Paro has the dreams of the cows before he has the dreams. When you think of famine, plenty of famine, what should come first, the cows or the wheat? The wheat should come first. Which dream does Paro have? He has the cows for it. So the Meshech Chochma, Ramir Simcha, the Meshech Chochma says, there's a story in the Gemara, it's in Yerushalmi, Alexander the Great. Oh, Hanukkah, Alexander, right? Alexander the Great went to visit a certain king. And there's a famous story, this king, he said, this king, it wasn't Alexander the Great. The king went to visit Alexander. The king saw Alexander the Great. Am I getting it mixed up? Oh no, Alexander visited this king. And he asked this king, he wants to see how the king carries out justice in his land. Alexander the Great was ruling the entire world basically, conquered whatever he could conquer. And so he says to this king, let's see how you, by the way, the Gemara mentions Alexander quite a bit. Alexander is mentioned in the Gemara. In the Gemara, he's called Alexandrus Mokdon. Mokdon is obviously Macedonian. Alexandrus Mokdon. And he engages the Chachamim in philosophical debate. Alexander goes, there's actually one story where Alexander, on one of his trips, he encountered a country or a city of women. That obviously means, it must mean that the women were running. It can't be only women, because then they wouldn't have people. So it's got to be that the women were the ones running the country. It's almost like the world got to a point where, can you imagine if Hillary Clinton would have won the presidency, and what's her name at one point was the head of England, the one who was Liz something or other for about a month. She made it through for a whole month. And Hillary Clinton in America, and what's her name in Germany, Merkel. She made a bunch of women running the world. Can you imagine what that conference looks like? You imagine the decisions that, speed limits the world look over would, first thing they do is reduce all speed limits. and they would knock out yellow lights. There would not be no more yellow lights. It would only go red and green. How could you imagine what that conference must look like? They said, "Oh, your dress looks so nice." Yeah, they're trying to decide if they should blow up Iran or not. They're talking about her dress. Can you imagine? So this was a country. This was the country of women. So Alexander, the women sent out a delegation, and they said to Alexander, this is women using keen Gemara logic. I guess they learned Gemara there too. The women said to Mimanovshach, said, if you defeat us, big deal. So history is going to record that Alexander defeated a bunch of women. And if we defeat you, it's going to be even worse. I mean, there's nothing for you to gain over here. It's like beating up an old lady. There's nothing for you to gain over here. What's going to be? Oh, he beat up an old lady, so what? So Alexander says, okay, just bring me some bread. Bring me some bread to eat. There's a Gemara. It's a Gemara in Talmud. So the women bring about a golden loaf of bread. A loaf of bread made out of gold. So Alexander says, how am I supposed to eat a golden loaf of bread? They said, it's what real bread you want? What, you don't have bread in your country back in Macedonia? You don't have bread? You need to come all the way out here for bread? So Alexander wrote on the doors of the city as he left, he wrote, I, Alexander, was a fool until I met this group of women. The women wizened me up, but I was an absolute fool. That's what the Gemara says. And the women wisened up. And I got news for you. Every husband, if he was honest, he would write on his front door, I was an absolute fool till I got married, and she wizened me up. Every husband, if he was honest, he'd admit. If he was, I just met a guy, I told the guy, there was a certain father, I saw this father, and I know his son was in the yeshiva. I met the father, and I said, by the way, you did a wonderful job. Your son has wonderful mitos. You raised a real mensch. So the father, he says to me, oh, it's not me, it's because of my wife. I said, yeah, I know that. I didn't have a havamina it was you. I didn't suspect it was you at all. Right? Of course it's your wife. What, do you think it was you? We know the truth. We all know the truth. Yeah. So Alexander admitted it. He said, I was a fool till I met the women. So the Gemara talked to us. So the Gemara goes back to this other story. Alexander goes and he meets these guys. He sees this king. So he says, let's see how you carry out your justice. So the two guys come in, first court case of the day. Two guys come in. And the first guy goes, I sold this guy what do you call it, a pile of manure, or fertilizer. And he dug through and he found, like, I don't remember what it was, diamonds or something in this pile of fertilizer, and he's trying to give it back to me. I sold him the fertilizer, whatever was in it. The diamonds are his. The other guy says, I bought fertilizer. I didn't buy diamonds. The diamonds are his. They start arguing back and forth. So Alexander's watching this. So the king says, do you have a son? He said, yeah. Do you have a daughter? He says, yeah. Let them get married. You give the diamonds to them. Everybody leaves happily. So he turns to Alexander. He says, what would you have done? He says, I would have killed them both and taken the diamonds for myself. So the king says to Alexander, do you have rain in your land? He says, yeah, we come from, Italy. What do you call it? Great Greece, Italy, very fertile area. He says, do you have cows where you come from? He said, yeah. He says, the rain, it comes down in the merit of your cows. It doesn't come down for people like you. That's what the king said to Alexander. Because you're corrupt. Right? The rain comes down in the merit of the animals, because the animals need the food. So the Meshech Chochmah says, that's what the dream of the cows was. The dream of the cows is, first thing you should know, that in Egypt, which is corrupt, where a guy could be thrown into prison without a trial because of a false accusation of assaulting somebody's wife, and he could be thrown in prison for 12 years, in a corrupt country like that, the first dream is the cows to teach power, that the merit of the prosperity that's going to follow is in the merit of the animals in Egypt. That's what the Meshech connects it up to that Yerushalmi. Because of that Gemara over there. That's why he sees the cows first, even though logically it should be in the other. In other words, he's coming off the question. The question is, why did you see the wheat with the cows before the wheat? You should really see the wheat before the cows. That's what the Meshech says. Okay. So then Paro says, Yosef says, you should appoint an ish navon v'chacham. How would you translate navon v'chacham? to what do you call it? What's he going to do? V'shisei al eretz Mitzrayim. You're going to appoint a novon v'chacham. How does the Eretz translate a novon and a chacham? I would say wise and what?
Discerning.
Wise and discerning. And then Paro should appoint people, and it should divide up, and they should gather all the produce for the 7 years of plenty for what he got. So the Farshim ask, I mean, if you wanted to get this project going, you got an entire country, and now the entire country needs to get organized and start storing up wheat for 7 years, for the 7 years of famine that are going to follow. What's the first qualification you would look for in a guy? We're on page 226. What's the first qualification you would look for in a guy who's going to run this program? You got a country like this, and it's got to be divided into regions, and every region is going to start storing their wheat, and it's got to be kept track of, and go, what's the first qualification you look for in a guy like this? A guy who's going to run this program. What's the first qualification? I would look for a guy who's good at organizing things. Get a guy who's got the ability to organize it. What does Yosef say? You need a wise, discerning person. Ish novon v'chacham. Why an ish novon v'chacham? Why do you need a novon v'chacham? If I wanted to do well on a math test, I would sit next to a novon v'chacham. I wouldn't sit next to a guy who's organized. If I want to make sure my factory is running well and Amazon is getting stuff delivered properly, I would get an organizer, no? That's why do you need Navon v'chacham? There are plenty of smart people who are disorganized. Sometimes you get the stereotypical genius professor who he still hasn't figured out how to tuck his shirt in. Walks around looking like he got blown out of a vacuum cleaner. And he forgets to comb his hair. Why a Navon v'chacham? The answer is because the Mishnah in Pirkei says, Ezu chacham, who's a wise man? Haroes hanolod. A wise man is somebody who sees what are the results of what you're going to do. A wise man sees what's going to be happy. You can anticipate what's going to be happening. During the 7 years of plenty, when the economy is good, people can't imagine things not going good. No one imagined. What was the big crash, 2007? 2008, 2000, the big crash of the tech bubble burst. No one anticipated that, because up until that point, everybody was riding high. Who anticipated it?
One person.
Who?
One person became a multi-billionaire.
Who's that?
There's a whole thing about the blind...
One guy anticipated it.
He put all the money from the investors and he made billions.
Really?
Yeah, it's one
Bird.
guy.
His name's Bird.
What was his name?
Something Bird.
But one guy.
One guy.
And it cost him millions to hold that position. And everyone was like, what are you doing? This is completely against what's...
What did he do? He anticipated the crash.
Yeah. And he put all the money against all the...
Against the companies.
And against the trend.
He put against the trend.
It cost him millions. And all the investors was like...
And everybody said, what are you doing? What are you doing?
They were
He himself was the head of a company.
He was
an investor.
He was
Interesting.
Of, serious investors.
But nobody else anticipated it. One guy. Okay, you're riding high. You need a novon and a chacham. You're going to need somebody who can anticipate. That's what Yosef says. That's a qualification that's needed here. You need a novon and a chacham. You don't need a guy who's an organizer, because when things are going well, you're just not thinking. Come on, you're like, come on. Somebody had a dream. You're telling me that with all this what do you call all this bracha, or what's the word? All this prosperity. You're telling me there's going to be a famine in 7 years. Give me a break. Let's go to the casino. And so stop hocking me a chinik. So you need somebody who's got that. That's the first qualification. Okay. Now, take a look at Parsha 2:18. I'm always amused by this pasuk. Vayitav hadover be'enei paro uve'enei kol avodav. The suggestion is very favorable to Paro and to all of his servants. Avodav, by the way, whenever it says Avodav, we'll see this later on in the Parsha too, in Vayechi and in Shmos, by the Makos. Avodav means his inner circle of advisors, who are really his yes men, his slaves. So I always get it. Paro, Vayitav hadover be'enei Paro. Paro likes the idea. Now, what do you think their reaction is when they see the boss likes the idea? Paro says, ooh, that's a good idea. What do you think, fellas? Oh, yeah, good idea. Oh, great idea. Wonderful idea. Yeah, there's probably one guy in the corner over there who was daydreaming. He says, Harold. Yeah. Harold, what do you think? Oh, great idea, Excellency. Great. I was actually going to suggest it by myself. Actually, great idea. Wonderful idea. These are all the yes men. When a Paro likes it, you like it too. Just say yes. It's like marriage, right? Just say yes. Vayomer Paro el avodov. Paro says to his servant, Hanimtza kazeisha sheruach elokim bo. Can we find such a man who's got the spirit of God in him? Then he says like this. And nobody answers. Nobody says, no, we got a couple others. Yeah, no, whatever Paro says is a great idea. Just go with what Paro says. Vayomer Paro Yosef, Achareho dia elokim es kozos, ein novon v'chocham kamocha. Since God has told you this, nobody is as wise as you. So what's his name? The Dovid Maggid, I think, he talks about a guy, there's a merchant, and the investors give him the money. The investors are investing with this, or an investor. So somebody says to him, oh, this is a rich guy. What do you mean he's a rich guy? All the investors have to give him money. I say, right. The fact that they're willing to give money means he's a rich guy. You don't give your money to a poor guy. You invest with the rich guy. He's obviously an investor, a rich guy. Says Paro to Yosef, if God is giving you this wisdom, must be you're wise to begin with. God isn't going to waste wisdom on a fool. God isn't going to do this with a fool. So he says, you're an ish novon, ein ish novon. Now watch this. This is a shocker. This is a shock. I remember I heard this shot. I was like, wow. Watch this, because the question's a good question. Now, you have to see it inside. It's the fourth line from the top on 228. You have to read this through. Paro says, Ata TL Basi, you're going to be in charge of my own house. Valpicha yishak kol ami, my whole nation is going to be run by your word of mouth. Rakakise egdal mimeka, the only thing that outranks you is me, my throne. And there are those proficient that say, Al picha yishak kol ami. The word yishak is also, it means, what is his precise translation? Your command shall, all my people, be sustained. Yishak, you'll sustain my entire country by your command, but the word yishak comes from the Hebrew word nishika, kiss. When there's prosperity, people are really friendly with each other. Everybody loves each other. Everybody doesn't mean have physically kissing each other, but people are good. Everybody's good with you. When the company's making money, everybody's in a good mood, right? And when everybody's making money, everybody's in a good mood. So he says to him, you're going to be the guy running my entire house, my entire country, except for me. Now, who was just talking? Who was talking just now? Paro. Look at the next pasuk. Vayomer Paro el Yosef. Paro says to Yosef, look, I've put you over the entire land of Egypt. And then Vayasar Paro Tabato, he takes off his ring. We'll see about that in a second. But I don't understand. In Pasuk Mem, who was talking? Paro's talking. Right? Ata tia al basi, look at the fourth line. Valpicha yishak kolai mirakikisa egdal mimeka. Now, why does it introduce the next pasuk with Vayomer Paro el Yosef reina sati yoscha kol eretz Mitzrayim? If Paro is talking already, why does it have to say Vayomer Paro Yosef? It should just continue. And Vayomer, or just say Re'ena Sat Yoscha Kol Eretz Mitzrayim. Why is there another pasuk Vayomer Paro Yosef? Paro's talking. Here the question. So I heard a pshat like this. If I came over there and said, hey, Ben Sion, you're a pretty sharp guy. I want you to become the vice president of the United States. You're vice president of the United States. We have a shul in your residence, wherever the vice president. We have a shul, kosher meals, a mikveh, and a basketball court. Everything you could possibly want, and a Chinese restaurant, right? Everything a Jew could possibly want, right? What would your reaction be? Huh? Good, yeah. Thumbs up. Yeah. Try me. Yeah, I'd have a lot more than a thumbs up, that I could tell you, right? Look at Yosef's reaction. Paro says to Yosef, Atati al Basi, fourth line. I'm putting you in charge of the country, kid. What's Yosef's reaction? There is no reaction. So Paro says, in other words, who should be talking now? Yosef says something like, well, gee, thanks, gee, shucks, thanks, boss. Oh, that's really swell. Yeah, something, right? Not a word. So Paro wasn't didn't expect to talk again. Then, Vayomer Paro Yosef, Paro says, Ray, look, don't you understand what just happened over here in the Yisrael? I put you in charge of Egypt. He didn't expect to be talking now. He thought Yosef was going to say, Yosef should be jumping jacks. He's doing jumping jacks. Jumping up and down. Paro says, look, you're going to run my country. You're going to think, Yosef, wow, I cannot believe this is great. I love when this happens. Something. Not a word. Boom. Paro says, look, don't you see what just happened? How does Yosef not react? How does Yosef not react? And the answer goes back to the pit. Remember when Yosef saw the two guys, the butler and the butler and the baker. So what was the first thing Yosef said to them? Hey guys, why are you looking so down this morning? In an Egyptian prison. Why are you looking so glum? What Yosef, you're a gum snapper? What are you so happy about? The answer is, it's the same Yosef. What should I give you happy? You're appointing me vice president. So what? So you appointed me vice president. What am I supposed to do with that? So I'll be vice president? I still have to serve God to the best of my ability. What am I going to do? I'm going to be vice president, so I'm not going to go buy a yacht? What's going to happen? So I'm vice president. So what? It doesn't change Yosef as a person. It just saddles you with more responsibility. I have to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in an Egyptian pit, and I have to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with what do you call it? I have to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu if I'm the vice president. So what? I should jump up and what? Am I going to become a Balgaiva now? I'm going to go spending money now? To me, it makes no difference. It's all avodas Hashem. Yosef is a man of bitachon. If this is where Hashem put me, I have to serve Hashem here. If this is where Hashem put me, I have to serve Hashem here. So what? So I'll have a more comfortable bed. That's something to get excited about. And therefore, Yosef does. Paro can't understand that. That's why Paro says, Ray, look! Why does it say Ray? Why does it say Ray? Why does it tell him look? He just told it to him. You didn't hear what he said in the first sentence? Look, don't you hear? Don't you see what I'm telling you, kid? You're going to be in charge of all Egypt. No reaction from Yosef. At no point do we see he says, thank you. Gee, thanks, Paro. Never. My nafkamina, as they say. Oh, what am I going to do with this? So I'll be vice president. Big deal. You can still only eat 3 meals a day. As I say, sometimes people look at rich guys. You know, some of these mega rich guys. A mega rich guy? I'd expect the guy to weigh 400 pounds. If you're mega rich, you should be eating all day long, no? I can only eat 3 meals a day. Can't eat any more than you could. Right? I got to take care of my cholesterol. I got to watch my health and not too much salt. They got the same issues the rest of us got. So what do you do? What are you getting all excited about? That's what So what does he do? He takes off the ring. Now watch this. I'm going to tell you, this is a real zany one. This comes from one of these Kabbalistic works, the Yalkut Ruveni. He says like this, Vayosar Paro es tabato me'al yado. He takes off his ring, Vayiten asal yad Yosef. He puts his ring on Yosef's hand. According to some, this is the signet ring that you sign the royal. Vayalbesh also bigdei sheish. He puts on sheish garments on Yosef. Vayosam revid hazov al tzavor, and he puts a golden, what do they call it? Bling. They have another word for bling nowadays. So it's no longer called bling. Somebody told me, what's it called? What do you put? What? What's it called? Ice. Ice is diamonds, isn't it? Yeah. What's the first word you used? Drip. Drip. That's you put some drip on him. You know, he's got drip. They used to call it bling. And if you have a lot of it, it's bling bling. You never heard this, Mayor? Mayor, you gotta learn. You know, how can you go to the diamond? Go buy your wife a bracelet. Go buy your wife what do you call it? A necklace, and walk in this. I need some bling for my wife. I need some drip for my wife. Yeah. So he puts this golden, what do you call it? And he puts them in bigdei sheish. He puts them in sheish. It translates as what? Fine linen. Now listen to this. And he puts the golden chain on it. So there's a source that says, I saw this in 2 different sources, by the way. Egypt was a place of sorcery, witchcraft. If you were wearing pure linen, you were protected from, did you ever hear this before? I don't know whether it's brought down in the Yalkut Ruveni, in the name of the Ramak, Rav Moshe Cordovero. If you're wearing pure linen, you're protected from sorcery and from ayin hara. Apparently, it was very royal garments, very fancy garments. The linen was very fancy garments. Paro doesn't want Yosef to be, in case Yosef steps out of line, Paro wants Yosef to be somebody who he can victimize with sorcery. So he puts pure linen on him, because that's what you wear when you wear royal garments. But he makes sure that only works if you have nothing else on you. So he puts a gold chain on Yosef. Because if you got the gold chain, then you're not immune to the sorcery, the witchcraft. Yosef doesn't react, but Yosef knows the secret. And he goes home and he takes off the chain. He takes off, and that's why it says, who wore only linen garments? Kohen Gadol, when he went into the Holy of Holies. Because the forces of evil, the koach, the sitra achra, right? The forces, the spiritual forces, they were at their heightened state of battle against spirituality, against kedusha. So when the Kohen Gadol would go into the Holy of Holies, he was very vulnerable to them. So he wore only what? Only linen. He wore only linen and got no gold, but he went into the Holy of Holies. So Paro puts this what he called on Yosef, and they put him on a wagon, and then Paro says to Yosef, you're the guy in charge. Now, look at Pasuk Memhei, 6 lines from the bottom. And Paro pulls a great political move here. Vayikra Paro Shem Yosef Tzofnas Paneach. He names him Tzofnas Paneach, which means the hidden things are revealed to him. And he gives him an Egyptian name. Vayiten lo es Osnas Bas Potifera Kohen only Isha. He gives him Osnas as a wife. Who is this Osnas? The daughter of Potiphar. Vayetze Yosef al Eretz Mitzrayim. Now, why is Potiphar? Why does Paro give him Osnas as a wife? Why Dafka Osnas? Why does Paro choose to give him Osnas as a wife? Could give him a different wife. Why her? Paro figures like this: if there's going to be trouble coming, listen, Yosef's going to become the ruler now. Who do you think's not going to be too happy about this? Certainly Mrs. Potiphar. So she may make trouble for him. Right? To try to spread rumors again. Maybe he actually, not if her daughter's married to him. Listen, I can mess him up. I don't want to mess up my daughter. So he gives, I think the Meshech Chochmah says, he gives Dafka Osnas to Yosef. Paro is saying, okay, and not only that, Paro is giving the wife. So it also, if Paro does something, we're not going to start trouble now. So that's a way of protecting Yosef from what he got. So the Gemara says, first of all, when Yosef met Paro, so Paro sat on a throne. The Gemara says it was 70 steps up. And in order to approach the king, each language that you knew, you went up one step. Now, I don't know that it means specifically only the language or the culture. The Gemara talks about a lashon. And Paro knew 70 lashonos. So when Yosef was in prison, the night before, Gavriel came to him and taught him all 70 lashonos. Right? It's like the night before the test, where you get a hold of the test in advance. Right? That was always good, right? Right, Shai? That was always good, yeah. Even on the day of the test, it was good, yeah. There was always the guy who took it out of the briefcase. He had the zechus of getting 100 on the test. Everybody else had to kind of divide it up, get a 98, 97. We don't want it to look too, otherwise it looks contrived. So you had to divide it up properly. But the guy who actually did the Mesiras Nefesh to pull it out of the teacher's briefcase, so he gets 100. Okay. So he teaches Yosef the what do you call it? I ever told you the night before the Animal Farm. Remember the book Animal Farm? Did you have to read that? Animal Farm? You didn't, not Animal Farm, Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies, yeah. So the night before the final, just to show you how Hashem loves the righteous, the night before the final, they were showing, I knew about as much about the book Lord of the Flies. I read the Cliff Notes, obviously. I wasn't going to waste my time to read the whole book. And the night before, they had the old movie, old English movie of the Lord of the Flies was on TV at about 1 in the morning. Right? I told the guys the next day, it's the first time in my life I ever pulled an all-nighter studying for a test. I watched the Lord of the Flies movie. So that's what Yosef gets. Gavriel comes to Yosef in prison, teaches him 70 lessons. The next day, Yosef goes to the palace, and they bring him to Paro. So Yosef's all the way at the bottom of the steps. So Paro says, "Bonjour, monsieur. Comment allez-vous aujourd'hui?" Moves up a step. Then it says something in Spanish. Yosef, I got 70 languages. Moves up, and all of a sudden Yosef keeps moving up. 70 languages. Then he's eye to eye with Paro. And Yosef says, "Shalom Aleichem." And Paro can't answer him because he doesn't know Lashon HaKodesh. Right? So Yosef says, "Shalom Aleichem." Paro can't answer. Yosef knows the language more than Paro, which means Paro would be deposed and Yosef would become the king automatically. So Paro made Yosef swear that he won't tell anybody about that he knows the one language more than Paro. Later on, when Yaakov dies, Yaakov makes Yosef swear he'll bury him in Eretz Yisrael. So Yosef goes to Paro, and he says to Paro, "I got to take my father up to Eretz Yisrael." Paro says, "I don't want you leaving the country." He says, "I swore to my father that I would leave." So Paro says, have the oath annulled, right? What we're learning in the Gemara, right? Have them annul the oath for you. So Yosef says to Paro, "If they annul that oath, I'll have them annul the oath that I swore to you, that I won't tell that I know one more language than you do." And suddenly Paro says, "You know what? I think it's a great day for a burial in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, go to Eretz Yisrael." Suddenly everything changes. So Yosef has approached the what do you call it? And he's got the way. So the Gemara says, the other officials weren't so happy about this. This guy, he's a 30-year-old whippersnapper. I mean, he's going to reign. Yosef's going to have an 80-year reign in Egypt. That's it. He's going to reign. He reigns till the day he dies when he's 110. The other officials weren't so happy. So they came to Paro, and they said to Paro, "This Hebrew you're putting in charge of the country?" So Paro said back to them, the Lashon of the Gemara is, it's in Sota and Daf Lamed Vav, he said to them, "Ginune Malchus ani roebo." He's got royal characteristics. Ginune Malchus ani roebo. Now, the plain meaning here is that, he's an impressive person. He's got his act together. He comes from what do you call it? He's a Novon and a Chacham. The plain meaning is that, this is a guy who's suitable to be a king. That's Ginune Malchus ani roebo. He's got royal characteristics. He's got the royal abilities. They had an Israel. Ginune Malchus also means how to behave in front of a king. When you go into the Queen of England, the King of England, I was told once that if you have a visit by Queen Elizabeth or by Prince Charles now, by King Charles now, when you go in, before you go in to meet the King or Queen, the people outside tell you what you do. You don't touch, you don't shake, you don't stick out your hand. There's a whole protocol before you go in there. And when you leave, you walk out backwards, you bow, that sort of thing. That's the plain meaning, Ginune Malchus ani roebo. But at a deeper level, it means, remember we said a couple of days ago, Paro says, "I see he's got royal tendencies. He rules over himself." If he rules over himself, he could rule over an entire country. If he rules himself, then he could rule the country. Then he's suitable. So the commentaries ask, what else did Paro see here? I mean, you're going to talk about a guy who's now going to be in charge of 7 years of prosperity. There's going to be a lot of cash flowing. I worked in 1980, I worked in a census in the United States. I was a census taker. So they did the census every 10 years. So 1980, I was single at the time. I went to get a job for a few weeks working on the census. So first we go through this course. I think it was a day or two course. I don't remember how long it took us, about how you fill out a form, a census form, and how you go in and ask questions. And we got paid at the time for every form you'd complete, you get $3. The guy in charge of me in my region was a not Jewish guy. I still remember his name, Todd Banner. Todd Banner was his name, not Jewish. He got $5 for every form we completed. The head of guy had. The amount of money that was being wasted, government money on this thing. So I remember, I was a Jewish kid, and I came up to him one day, and I go into this family. I knocked on the door, and I said, but I couldn't get a call. I said, "Todd, I'm missing a couple of answers over here. I don't know what I should write over here." He tells me, give me that thing. He just takes the form, just fills it in. He said, just give me the form. Just hit it, just filling it in. $5 a form. That's what he said. Don't. Yeah, that's what you're gonna mask it. It just money was being wasted left, right, and center. Paro's going to have all this prosperity. How does he know that he could trust Yosef? How does he know he could trust Yosef? The answer is because at the moment we go back to that biladai. The first word out of Yosef's mouth, that was the key to the whole thing. Paro knew that Yosef had everything writing on this. He says, I know you interpret dreams. And he says to him, biladai, it's not me. That's an honest guy. Him I could trust running the country. So Paro takes Yosef and he puts Yosef in the country. And then Yosef's going to start, what do you call it, getting everything organized. Okay, this we'll continue with. All right.